so that when they bought them on, we have a whole background. And so at the estate sale, in the yard, my parents did not come. My dad said, if I go, it's just going to be a silver. You have to represent us. So after the estate sale, everything's out. He's still selling the house, but I have a lot of outside of the table. And the first opening bid was all the great grandparents, all that. So I did. No one contested me. She did not do anything of her. So I paid $100.
Oh, yeah.
But from that moment on, it did not matter whatever it was. It was just a piece of fence. It was just a piece of whatever. That woman fought for it. But money is money. And so my dad here showed up. So he just couldn't take me over and came down to the tractor. And Daddy saw me over there bidding, and Daddy says, "Man, whatever you want to spend, I don't care."
I'll never look back down.
She's still
I know the answer.
even having music today. Anyway, so
Did that to me again.
So it all worked out. And we had friends of the family that also did, and then she would let them do the tables, and then they gave them to us. He had like old unbelievable, but so odd. So odd. I mean, just
They do this to me anymore. There's no music. So I'm listening to the national. No piano player. Everybody trying. Great. Last year, last time oh, thank you, babe. You are so good. I love you. He's sure to have money next week. No, not Christmas. I gave it. I think we gathered and did it, right? Same week.
she does a great job.
And she is so good. She'll be members, but I don't drink it. There's a wait person over Texas Music City. We have a network Tuesday. And she knows that I drink water. And she also knows me. She knows I'm good too. I love women on the we're building a whole new reputation. I really like it. They will call their money. They showed up. People nowadays are not showing
Yeah, that's one of the things. But you know, I guess that's whenever I'm meeting it's so funny.
Everybody, how are you?
BJ, don't start. Just don't start.
That's this is all. You don't want to do it.
I just like the regular. Are you?
You were a problem child growing up. You were a problem child growing up.
Of course.
Problem children, broke their problem.
It takes one to know one, that's how.
Exactly.
I have friends in AA, and they say if you see it, you got it.
They go through the text one to know one.
Same thing as the other.
Same thing as if you got this text one to know one.
Yeah, same thing. I love that. I Googled the answer to a trivia question about it. Exactly.
Well, I had everybody.
She's just using the tools. That's
I told them,
You said there.
You shook next week.
Like what?
insurance claims or something like that. So that we all have records and say, you know, you talk to Robinson Roberts yet?
You know who does that?
Ross and Shaw, 82. Stole the show. They say, okay, no, they're elder care attorneys.
Yeah. Let's say Courtney's next
It's
door.
actually in the room next door.
Yeah.
She was about ready to switch roles when I was talking to her right there.
She would be great if she did.
Isn't it Courtney?
Yeah.
She's a
She
marketing
used,
person, but she connects.
Yeah.
People with her.
Well, you take medication.
They do it with a lot of older people.
Yeah. Well, it was a part of it. We deal with Medicare a lot. Yeah.
right now, Robinson Roberts is dealing with a whole lot of that. Because I had an automobile accident last March. First one in like 60 years where I was just driving out through highway, like 45, 50 miles an hour, just parked in front of one.
Well, BJ Robertson's in there, you wasn't making a large in Alma.
Exactly.
Say what?
Robertson is
Exactly.
when you get done.
I had told Bruce.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is time once again for the fun to start. I want to welcome everyone to our Thursday afternoon meeting of the Rotary Club of Tyler. Yeah, is everybody happy? Huh? It's good to see you guys. I'm glad to be here. We've got a pretty good sized crowd here today, and we've got an excellent speaker in front of us. Go ahead and please turn your cell phones off so that they don't go off.
What about your pagers?
She does this just to torture me. I'm telling you guys. Come on up here, BJ. BJ's going to lead us today in the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. David Jones is supposed to do it, but he's not feeling well, so BJ has been elected.
Be sure you don't irritate the president. It gets you many more duties. I'm never going to live down Googling the answers. We are so blessed to be together today. Yes, please stand.
Don't forget, you promised to come over and trim the trees at my house later.
Oh my gosh. The spirit is willing, the body hesitates. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed after twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Remain standing for our invocation.
That would be Allison, I believe.
Yeah, Allison Cameron.
You are, sir.
Talking about catching it, listen. Talking
I
about
catch them on the lurch. Let us pray. Let us with a gladsome mind praise the Lord, for he is kind, for his mercy shall endure, ever faithful, ever sure. And let all the people say, Amen. You may be seated. I don't have the list in front of me, so I was looking at it just a moment ago. I don't think that there are that many visitors that are with us today, but I'd like to go around and ask, do we have any visiting Rotarians from other clubs? It looks like there isn't. Okay, introduction of guests. Do we have members that have guests with us today? Yes, please stand, introduce yourself.
I've got my father here with me today, Charles Hill. He probably knows how he's supposed to
Fantastic. Glad to have you with us. Are there others? Yes, Kathy.
I would like to introduce, this is William Moscato, this is my boyfriend, he's my guest today.
Great. Good to have you with us. Are there other guests? I believe President Bill, that's it.
Okay, well, thank you, Allison. What was that? Somebody say something? Okay, I guess I'm hearing things. Okay, I want to thank our pianist this week, but we didn't have a pianist, so I got nobody to thank. And I want to thank our greeter for the day, who was John McGuez. Where's John? Saw him earlier. Oh, there he is right there. Big hand for John. Excellent job. And now it's time for This Week in History with our own Paul Gleiser.
On the 9th of December, 1992, British Prime Minister John Major announced that Charles, Prince of Wales, and his wife, Diana, Princess of Wales, were separating amicably. That announcement followed months of speculation in the British tabloids. They divorced on August 28, 1996. About 4.5 years later, 1 year and 3 days after their divorce, Diana died in a Paris high-speed auto accident. On the 10th of December, 1884, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn was published by Samuel Clemens under his pen name Mark Twain. First publication was in Canada, believe it or not, followed by the UK in December and the US in February. It was characterized by Ernest Hemingway as the, quote, source of all modern American literature, and has never been out of print. On the 11th of December, 1936, King Edward VIII of Great Britain addressed the nation on radio saying, "I have found it impossible to carry on the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge the duties of king as I would wish to do without the help and support of the woman I love." With that, he abdicated the throne after just 325 days in order to marry American divorcee Wallis Simpson. He was succeeded by his brother, Albert, who became King George VI. He was the father of the current monarch, Elizabeth II. On the 12th of December, 1901, Italian-born Guglielmo Marconi engineered the transmission of the Morse code letter S, which consists of 3 dots, ... from Cornwall, England to Newfoundland, Canada, becoming the first successful transatlantic radio transmission. On the 13th of December, 2003, U.S. forces captured Saddam Hussein near his hometown of Tikrit in Iraq. 3 years and 17 days later, Hussein was hanged by the Iraqi government following conviction on charges of crimes against humanity. On the 14th of December in 1799, first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen, George Washington died at his home in Mount Vernon at the age of 67. His death was likely the result of the treatment he was given for a severe cold. And on the 15th of December, 1998, following a string of financial and sexual scandals resulting in the appointment of a special prosecutor, the House Committee on the Judiciary released a 265-page report recommending the impeachment of President Bill Clinton. The full House approved 2 articles of impeachment. 4 days later, Clinton would go on to be tried in the Senate and convicted. If I can turn the page. Maybe not. I'll keep you hanging. He was acquitted in the Senate on February the 12th of 1999. Birthdays in the coming week, starting today. Donny Osmond turns 64. Brenda Lee, the great country singer, turns 77 on Saturday. On Sunday, Bob Barker from The Price is Right turns 98. Also on Sunday, Dionne Warwick turns 81. And on Monday, Dick Van Dyke turns 96.
Oh my God.
And that's this week in history.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Very enjoyable as always. And let me see here. Okay. This week here. Okay. This week, we're not going to have trivia time, but next week, we're going to have trivia time with a vengeance, folks. Let me tell you. Think sports, think international. That's the only clue I'm going to give you. No cell phones, BJ.
Yeah.
Okay? All right, Rotary business. Oh, wait a minute. Before we get to Rotary business, we have a special presentation. I'd like to ask Mary Birch to come on up here.
Yeah.
Come on up, Mary. Go ahead. I'll talk. Mary, this is for all your hard work for the Christmas parade. You went above and beyond, so we made an executive decision to present this to you. Thank you for all your hard work. You know what I really like about her? She's from Irving, Texas.
Tyler, you lived in Irving.
Yeah, I lived in Irving. Well, here's that bomb. You want to say something?
Yeah, I do. If it wasn't for this lady, we would not have had a Tyler Christmas parade for Rotary last week. She was above and beyond, constantly following up, making sure everything was in order, worked tirelessly, even harder, I think, than when she and Ashley chaired it last year. So that is just a minuscule amount that we could show our appreciation to her. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Okay. Rotary business. Tonight, we've got Christmas at the Crooms. That's right. What time we start tonight, Bill? 6 o'clock. We got live entertainment, food. Let me see here. Yeah, Pam and Richard Moore are providing our live entertainment. It's not going to be Pam and Richard. They're just bringing the people that are giving the. Yeah, we will make that clear. Okay. All right. And she's not in here, so see Holly for Lupita's Christmas gift. I don't want to just work that out real loud. She does a lot for us. Any amounts appreciated. Tyler Rotary Foundation projects need to be funded by December 15th. We need your help. Donations of any size are appreciated. We've got the Guatemala Hospital project, still need just a little under $3,000, and then Camp V needs a little over $3,500. And our program for next week will be Captain Jeremy Walker of the Salvation Army. And now, my friends, let me introduce the world's greatest president-elect.
Whoop. Did I not have inductions on there? We have new member inductions?
I don't see
Did you
anything
miss?
about that. Hold on just a second here, Allison. Did I skip over that?
It's because I forgot to put it on.
Boy, I tell you what, it's hard to find good
I know.
help these days.
Yeah.
Is it time for, what's that?
Is it Lupita's Christmas next week?
Mhm.
Yes. Keep it down.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I was writing the check.
We have some inductions. Let me bring Denver Dyer up here. Sorry about that, Allison.
Sorry,
Get you all
Allison.
revved up and then jerk the rug out from underneath you. Come on up here, Denver. How you doing, pal? Good to see you. Yeah. Okay, man.
All right, President Bill, fellow Rotarians, I have the privilege today of presenting Mr. Chris Hill, Christy Hill, Alan Johnson, and Debbie Kavanaugh as new Rotarians. Would y'all please come here and join us? These Rotarians have been proposed by Kim Lewis, Austin Lewis, Mike Kavanaugh, and Donna Crew. So we need y'all to come up here as well, if you don't mind. Let's see here. Approved by membership in this club by the board of directors in accordance with the Constitution and bylaws of the Tyler Rotary, or the Rotary Club of Tyler. Make sure I get that right. Approval indicates that these candidates are worthy representatives of calling and supportive of the ideals of Rotary. They reflect the high ethical standards expected of all Rotarians and understand that service above self is not just a motto, it is but a goal that all Rotarians strive for. They have agreed to accept the obligations attached to membership in Rotary and understand that they will represent Rotary in their public, private, and social lives. Holly, Austin, I'm sorry. Holly, Austin's not here. Mike, please. Okay, we got some extra help. Good. Please introduce your candidates to the club.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I have the distinct honor. Obviously, I'm not Austin, so he is coming back from a week of hard work. And I say that sarcastically because he's been in Vegas. But anyway, no, but it is my honor and privilege to introduce Alan Johnson to this club. He's been here for a little while, and just to brag on him a little bit, he came and joined our commercial firm back at the beginning of this year, just shortly after I had joined Austin and the team. And you can't find a harder working young man than this gentleman right here. It doesn't matter who you are. If he sees somebody, he's willing to give you the shirt off of his back and has one of the biggest hearts of any man that I know. And I'm a country boy at heart too. And and he knows how to do more stuff than anybody that I know. And I'm a little bit jealous of that. So hopefully he'll bestow some of that wisdom upon me. But he's been super successful this past year, selling ranches and farms all across the state of Texas. And he's been a complete asset to our company, and we know that he is going to be a complete asset to this club as well. So, Alan, my buddy, it is an honor to have you here with us today and to officially become a Rotarian.
Guys, I just want to say thank you all. I'm very proud to be a part of this club, and I hope to serve it in my community well.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to nominate Debbie, my wife. After my first luncheon here at the invitation of DM, I had the pleasure of sitting at a table with BJ, Jack, and Dr. Hudnall, and I was very impressed with the people I got to know. It impressed me so much I wanted to come back many times until I joined. And over the last couple of years, I've thought many times of who I could ask to come. And I thought my wife, Debbie, I think would make an excellent Rotarian. She's very accomplished. She was a partner at Price Waterhouse for about 18 years until she retired. But then when we moved to Tyler, she, like myself, started volunteering in a lot of different areas. And but I thought she'd make a great Rotarian, mostly because she gives. She is a giver, and she puts others before herself all the time. And she's a leader, and if there's a committee, I know she would love to be on it and participate. And so at this time, yes, I'm very happy that she's here.
Have the best of luck. Thank you all. It has been just a pure, true joy to be here as part of Rotary and now to become a Rotarian. I've said it every single week. What wonderful people. Whether we're ringing bells this morning or at the parade last week or what have you, it's always goodness of people with wonderful hearts. And it's really a treasure and an honor to be here as a Rotarian. And I'd also like to note Dr. D.M. Edwards, who also supported my membership, my nomination.
I have the pleasure of transferring members here. Chris and Christy Hill, they transferred from Waco and College Station, sorry.
No,
Sorry. Okay.
That's a significant difference.
They were actually proposed by Kim Lewis. And so Kim was not here today, so I'm kind of the stand-in fill-in for that. But they are with the Center for Humanitarian Aid. I'm going to let you explain your Ukraine trips and the things that you do for the rest of the global world.
Sure. So we're involved in a work that serves orphans and at-risk youth in Ukraine. It's faith-based work, and it's given us some opportunities to travel over the last 8 years. We've really enjoyed that. I grew up around Rotary, and we really enjoyed our time at College Station. And when we relocated here, we were grateful to find this club as well.
We moved to Tyler 3 years ago and didn't plan on staying quite as long as we have, but we've really been enjoying being a part of the Tyler community. And just want to say thank you for being just such a welcoming group of people that we've really enjoyed being around.
Sponsors, does Chris, Christy, Alan, and Debbie know the four-way test and understand that it is to be applied in all they think, say, and do? Chris, Christy, Alan, and Debbie, you have been informed of the requirements of membership in the Tyler Rotary. Do you accept them, agree to uphold the ideals of Rotary, and be vital and an active part of this club? On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Rotary Club of Tyler, you are hereby inducted to membership. Here's your new member package, which I see you already have. Sponsors will present them with the Rotary emblem, which they will wear with pride as they join more than 1 million other Rotarians around the world. Chris, Christy, Alan, and Debbie, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the club. Is there anything you'd like to add or say to the club at this point? Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and join me in welcoming our newest Rotarians, Chris Hill, Christy Hill, Adam Johnson.
Thank you, Denver. And Chris, Christy, Alan, Debbie, welcome to you guys. And just so happy to have all of you here. Okay? You bet. Thank you, Denver. Okay, now, Allison, this time you can come up and stay.
Thank you. Let me find my notes here. There they are. We have our speaker for today, one of our own members, John Payne. I'm going to keep the introduction mercifully short. One of the things that I found out about John is this is sort of a second life for him, second career. He grew up in Rains County, but originally he was a physics teacher. And he taught, I think, in Plano High School, if I remember correctly. And John is one of those kind of people, for those of you who are not physics majors, who believes that if I had a 60-pound weight in front of me and I step over and I pick it up, that's considered work. But if I walk with that 60-pound weight, that is not considered work. And I've never fully understood that distinction, but that's what that's what those kind of people believe. Now, let me go further in this. John is certified in estate planning and probate law at the Texas Board of Legal Specialization. He's a former CPA. He has served as legal counsel for the Berkshires and as an officer and shareholder in Potter Minton, PC. He got his VA at UT Austin. He got a master's degree in Notre Dame. And at SNU, he got his MBA and JD. He has certification in estate planning and probate law. John, welcome for your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Allison. It's a pleasure to get to make a presentation to my own Rotary Club on a subject that has been my area of law practice for many years now. It caused me to recall my first law partner, Robert Dobbs, which some of y'all will remember. It was my first law partner, was really considered the premier estate planning attorney in Tyler and East Texas for many years, and taught me a lot of things that I want to share with you today that I hope will be useful to you. We're going to talk about estate planning, things that maybe you already know, but it's sort of like stories in the Bible. Maybe you already know them, but it's good to hear them again every now and then. So let's see. Go ahead now. There we go. Well, just to begin with, I just briefly show up on the screen some of the important estate planning documents that will apply to many folks. Maybe not every one of those will apply to you, but those are many of the customary estate planning documents that you'll find that you do have or that you should have. And we're going to be talking more about each one of them. Go ahead next. The first document, of course, your basic estate planning document is just a will, and a will is it's sort of like a blanket deed. It's a deed that conveys almost all of your property at death. And we're going to talk a little more later about why it's almost all of your property, not all of your property. You know, a deed, if you sign a blanket deed to your property, it'd be effective now to cover your property, and you just walk down to the courthouse and record it. A will, however, is not effective when you sign it. It's not effective until your death, and then not effective until the court says that it's a valid will, and that's called probating. Probate's another word for validate. You have to take the will to court. It's just a brief perfunctory hearing, kind of like a wedding. It's just a brief perfunctory hearing, but it's a really important formality. And when the will has been validated or approved by the county judge, it's the official, your will, and conveys most of your property, almost all of your property, to the beneficiaries named in the will. And there are many different types of wills, but in general, just be sure that it includes the names of your beneficiaries accurately, and contingent beneficiaries. What if that first beneficiary precedes you? Well, here are the contingent beneficiaries. In Texas, we have something called independent administration, and that which a lot of states don't have. Independent administration, if it's provided in your will, means that once the judge validates the will, probates the will, and names the executor is independent of the court from that point forward. The job of the executor is to identify your assets, to pay your debts, and convey your property to the beneficiaries named in the will. But in general, the executor never has to go back to the court again for approval. And it's just a much simpler probate procedure that we have here in Texas if it's provided for in the will. Another important provision in the will is what's called a self-proving affidavit. It's a special notarized paragraph in the will, and if it's included, it should be included, then the witnesses to the will don't have to appear in probate court. So it again makes the formality of probating or validating the will much simpler if the will includes a self-proving affidavit. Another important estate planning document is a durable general power of attorney, a document that authorizes someone else to act on your behalf in business, financial, legal, insurance, accounting matters. It's important to name the person that you trust to serve as your agent, quite often a spouse or a child, but someone that you trust to act on your behalf in business and financial matters, and to name a successor agent, a backup, if something should happen to the original agent. Generally, I think it should be effective immediately. Some people say, well, John, I don't need it to be effective immediately. I just need to be effective if I become incapacitated and can't act for myself. But the problem there is that then when your agent goes to act for you somehow, maybe because you were out of town, you were traveling, maybe you're sick, or just somehow prefer that agent to assist you and represent you, they first have to prove to that lawyer or that title company or that banker or whoever that you're incapacitated. So I prefer for the power of attorney to be effective immediately and in all events, not just after you become incapacitated. But it should cover incapacitated. Your power of attorney should specifically state that it is still effective even if you do become incapacitated. That's what makes it durable or permanent, both immediately and even after you become incapacitated. And of course, you need to deliver either the original or at least a copy to the agent, because if they go to act on your behalf, with some third party, they're going to need to have some documentation to prove that they are in fact your agent. But a very, very important durable document, estate planning document, is your durable general power of attorney. Another document, next, please, Kathy, is a medical power of attorney that authorizes someone to give medical consent to your treatment, not just the discontinuance of life support, but any kind of medical treatment. You can't have an x-ray made or a blood test made or whatever without signing some sort of medical consent. So if you can't sign for yourself, who are you going to trust to give consent to medical treatment? Again, I encourage you to designate both an original agent and a backup, a successor agent. Deliver a copy of that power of attorney to the agent so that they'll have it in their possession if they need it. And be sure that medical power of attorney includes a HIPAA authorization so that the clinic or the doctor can disclose medical information, your personal medical information, to the agent that's named. Okay, next. Another very important estate planning document that I think you should have, most people should have, is a document that authorizes the withdrawal, the discontinuance of life support if you are in an unconscious, terminal, or permanent stage, at least in the opinion of your doctors, that you're unconscious, you're on life support, and you're never going to be conscious again, and you're never going to be off that life support again, at least in the opinion of those attending physicians. This authorizes the discontinuance of life support. A gruesome situation to contemplate, but even more gruesome to not be able to discontinue.
Hold the mic in front of your mouth.
Excuse me, what?
Hold the mic in front of your mouth.
Yeah. There you go.
A little closer?
Yes.
Here on that, okay. And many directives to the physician, clients prefer to, before the life support is discontinued, even though it's authorized to require the doctors consult with, maybe even obtain the written consent of certain family members before the discontinuance of life support. But one way or the other, have a legal document that authorizes the discontinuance of life support in those dire circumstances. Okay. I mentioned earlier that a will covers all or almost all of your property, but quite often there's some very important property that's not covered by your will that you should be aware of. For example, life insurance policies, annuities, IRAs. The life insurance company is not going to ask what did the will say. What the life insurance company is going to ask is who's the beneficiary name for this policy or annuity, and the bank or the brokerage firm is not going to ask, well, what did the will say? They're going to ask who's the beneficiary of this IRA. So that can be some of your most important property. Trusts. We're going to talk some more about trusts here in just a minute. But trusts, if you have property that's held in a trust, it passes to whoever is named in the trust document, not who's named in your will document. Now, sometimes trust will provide that you may, in your will, designate who the trust property goes to, but ordinarily the trust property passes outside your will. JTWROS, sometimes in fine print on a bank account or brokerage account, the account agreement will state that this account is held as joint tenants with right of survivorship. Maybe just in fine print on page 3, but if you look close, it'll say with right of survivorship, and that means that the property in that account, the assets in that account pass to the joint tenant instantly, automatically, upon your death, regardless of what your will says. Well, there may not be anything wrong with that, but you don't want it to come as a surprise. It's important to realize that some joint tenant accounts pass according to will, but not if it has that phrase with right of survivorship on the account agreement. POD, payable on death accounts, quite often those will be bank accounts that are payable on death to a named beneficiary, or TOD, transfer on death accounts, more typically a brokerage account that pass to the named beneficiary, regardless of what your will says. Again, not anything wrong with that, as long as you know and realize that that's how that property is going to pass. When you sign your will, you haven't covered the disposition of all your property yet. If you have any of these life insurance, annuities, IRAs, trusts, joint accounts, if you have any of these types of property, they're going to pass outside your will and perhaps differently from your will. So you need to verify and double check those type of accounts to see that they're payable to the beneficiary that you wish. Next, please. On life insurance, I don't know a lot about life insurance, but sometimes my clients will ask me something about, well, how much life insurance should I have? And I said, well, I don't know, but I do know that in determining how much life insurance you need to purchase, the first question you should ask yourself, well, what's the purpose of it? Is it to pay debts in the event of your death? Is it to provide for the education of your children? Is it to pay taxes? Is it to increase the size of the inheritance passing to your family? But if you'll think through what's the purpose of your life insurance, then that'll give you a guide as to how much and whether it should be temporary or permanent. Also, be sure in naming a beneficiary of your life insurance that you name both a beneficiary and your preferred contingent beneficiary. Okay. Retirement plans, IRAs, are one of the most important assets in many persons today. And in naming a beneficiary, typically the spouse is named as the beneficiary, and the spouse can what they call roll it over into an account in the name of the surviving spouse and withdraw it over the spouse's lifetime. Quite often, children will be the contingent beneficiaries. Children cannot withdraw the IRA over their lifetime, but they can draw it out over a deferred 10-year period if they wish. And particularly, I want to remind you that if you have a desire to name a charity as the beneficiary of a part of your estate. Retirement accounts are a great way to make a charitable gift because it's tax-free. It would be taxable to your spouse or children, but it would be tax-free to your church, school, Salvation Army, or whoever it might be, to any charity. But it's important to determine who are the beneficiaries of your IRA, because it will not pass according to your will. It'll pass to the beneficiary named on the IRA beneficiary form. Okay. I want to mention trust. I think of trust as in sort of the same vein I think of as pickup trucks. And by that I mean trusts are very useful devices, but just like a pickup truck is a very useful device, vehicle, but not everybody needs a pickup truck. Well, trusts are very useful legal devices, but not everybody needs a trust. Well, what purpose do trusts serve? They're useful sometimes to reduce or eliminate estate taxes. Another very useful purpose is that they protect inheritance from creditors. Well, now your spouse or your children may never have any creditors, but if they do, any lawsuits. But trusts provide a very substantial protection of the inheritance from any creditors. Similarly, hopefully there won't be any divorces among your children or surviving family, but trusts protect inheritances from not only from estate taxes and lawsuits, but also from divorces. So it's sort of an insurance policy to protect the children's inheritance. And in some cases, it's to protect the children from their inexperience financially by naming a third-party trustee, such as a bank. I want to point out that trust, you can accomplish those first purposes about protecting from estate taxes and from protection from creditors and protection from divorces, even though you have an individual trustee, perhaps the spouse or the child serving as their own trustee, but the trust will still protect their inheritance from these other outsiders. The time that you particularly need a bank, a corporate trustee, is where the beneficiary is either too young or too inexperienced to handle the financial, the financial side of the trust of their inheritance. Okay. Marital property agreement, sometimes referred to as a prenuptial agreement. It can be an important estate planning document. Most folks, when they're married, they don't have any property, so they don't have to worry about this. But if they do, if you go into a marriage with some separate property, some of your own assets at the time of the marriage, and that you want to maintain and have a record of that, you need a marital property agreement to help identify and preserve either the separate versus the community aspect of the property that you brought into the marriage or that you inherited after your marriage. A marital property agreement should be sure and cover the principal, the assets that you consider to be your separate property, and should also cover the income and appreciation and the compensation of the husband and wife. So in the case of particularly in case of marriages later in life or where there's substantial individual assets coming into the marriage, this is a very, very important estate planning agreement. Okay. Buy-sell agreements can be a very important estate planning. If you're in partners with someone, that's great. And you've had a good business relationship for years and years, but at some point that business relationship is going to end either by death, by disability, or perhaps just one party wanting to withdraw or retire from the business. So a buy-sell agreement needs to cover the triggering event. What triggers the right of one party to buy out the other partner or the other co-owner? And it's particularly important to avoid. Maybe you've had a great relationship with your partner, but if your partner dies, you don't want to be negotiating or with the partner's spouse or the partner's children, or even an ex-partner for that matter. So it's, if you're gonna have a business partnership, I just think it's very important to have an agreement that determines how and when if we're gonna end this business partnership, how are we gonna purchase the other partner's interest? And I think it's even very important to have a definite purchase price, not an appraised purchase price, not just a reasonable purchase price. It may not be a perfect purchase price, but try to have something definite to avoid controversy or negotiations with your former partner or his family. Another item or two. These days, I think it's another document that your lawyer's not going to prepare, but you can prepare, is a list of assets, a list of your customary advisors, and a list of the user names and passwords of your digital accounts. If you should die, that is so important for your spouse or your children, your executor, whoever it may be, to know, well, what are your assets, where they don't have to search all over creation trying to identify, well, what were your assets, where are they, and who should I go to, what accountant, what lawyer, what insurance agent, who should I go to for assistance, but give them a list of who you have trusted and relied upon to give them a good start. And is there one more slide? Just as a reminder to you, a lot of people want to benefit not only their family in the event of their death, but I just want to remind you that there are all sorts of ways that you can benefit charity. And sometimes clients say, well, I would like to benefit some school or hospital or some charity, but I just don't have the cash to do so. And I just want to offer a quick reminder that there are all sorts of different types of property, whether it's minerals, jewelry, collections, stocks, timber. There are all sorts of ways to benefit a charity. If you have an interest in benefiting some charity, there's probably a way that we can find for you to provide that benefit, to convey that benefit to a charity, even though you don't have a lot of cash to work with. So, Bill, that's about it.
We got time for questions.
Okay, we've got.
Paul's got one.
You got a question?
I've had an occasion, I'm helping a colleague who is incapacitated and is nearing the end of his life, where I have run into reluctance on behalf of institutions to accept a general durable power of attorney. Are they legally required to act on the presentation of the durable power of attorney?
Well, they're not legally required to, but using a statutory form, the so-called statutory durable general power of attorney, helps facilitate their acceptance. And having it done recently, once it's more than, say, 8 or 10 years old, they become even more reluctant to accept it. And then having a provision in the power of attorney that specifically authorizes the agent to make a claim against that third party for failing to accept the power of attorney can help facilitate it. But you're right that you do meet with a lot of reluctance. I think they're at risk for not accepting it, but I don't think they're necessarily required.
And if the resistance is stiff, I mean, they go into bureaucratic lockdown and you're just stuck.
Well, I know that can be a problem, but they expose themselves to some vulnerability for not accepting it if it's a valid power of attorney. John, did you have a question?
Yeah, does your durable power of attorney encompass a medical power?
It could, but not ordinarily. Ordinarily, those are two separate documents, John, for two purposes and two different formats.
John, I've heard, if you verify for me if this is true, I've heard that a probated will is public record and anybody can go in and see every bit of your estate, where a trust is private and is not a public record.
The will itself is a public record. The dispositive terms, the names of the beneficiaries, the provisions of the will itself is a public record. the inventory of your assets that comprised the estate at one time was a public record, but it no longer needs to be a public record. As an alternative, there's now, the executor is under a duty to prepare an inventory. But if the executor provides that inventory to each of the beneficiaries, the people that really have an interest in the estate, the executor no longer has to file the inventory of assets in the public record.
Yeah, so the current estate tax exemptions are set to sunset in 2026 here. And there's been some talk of them lowering even more. Do you have any thoughts or predictions about where we're gonna end up?
You know, that's the estate. Is that
Okay.
The what?
Did it just die?
Well, the estate tax exemption has grown very, very large, up to $12 million next year. And there's talk about reducing that. It's anyone's guess. My guess is it'll be cut back in about half to $5 or $6 million range. But that's anyone's guess as to when and whether it will be cut back.
It's flashing.
It's working.
It's at its tail end.
Yeah, it's its tail end. Thank you.
Yes.
Big hand for John, everybody. So much paper up here, and I've only got one hand. John, I want to give this to you. This is a certificate that we give to all our speakers. We'll dedicate, or we will donate rather, a book to the Literacy Council. And it's got my signature on there. It'll never be worth anything, so,
It'll never be worth anything, my signature, so, you can still hand it down to your family if you want though, okay? All right, folks, well, I've enjoyed this meeting, very informative, John. It's time now for the Ace of Diamonds. JB3, what do we have in there this week?
Well, we have $1,071.39.
$1,071. You draw a ticket there, John?
I said 71,000. I would bought 20. I tried to hide that.
It's 475.
475. Who's got that? Who's got it? Somebody said me? You got it, Jennifer? And how many tickets did you buy this week, Jennifer? 50?
From our donor, and so if I pull the winning ticket today, all the proceeds go to the club. Yay!
Thank you.
Just somebody buys one and gives it.
John, thanks. That's great.
They buy it when they're here. It's generally.
Oh, so close.
Oh, so close. What was that? The Ace of Hearts? Ace of Clubs. Okay. All right. Anything else from anybody? Okay, guys, let's go ahead and stand for the four-way test, please. Of the things that we think, say, and do as Rotarians. First.
Is it the truth?
Second.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third.
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
All right, guys, call me if you need me. See you tonight at the cruise. And we're dismissed.
I need to tell you to give you money for